Time to check in with Amanda Lang. She is a business reporter with BNN Bloomberg and host, of course, of Taking Stock, which you can hear anywhere, by the way, on the Iheart Radio network. Amanda, before we get to the topics that we have for today, I wanted to ask you a question. I had a chance to interview Jimmy Jean, who is, an analyst at the Desjardins Group, a story that appeared in the Globe this week where he has got a pretty optimistic portrait of where he thinks interest rates are going to be heading. He's predicting 11 rate cuts, bringing us down about 2.25% by 2026. I just wanted to get your reaction to that.
I mean, by 2026 is, I guess, a long time. That suggests, of course, that he sees a terminal rate of quite a low rate, right? 2.25%.
Yeah.
I think he's an outlier on that, but it's possible. The only thing I would say is I think we need a pretty weak economy to get us there. So I don't know that it's great news. And the one thing I would say is you don't want to bet wrong on the direction of rates. You're better off assuming rates will be high and winning if they're lower. But to assume anything like that, I think would be a bit risky, both for, big bond investors, but also for people who are locking in mortgages. Don't make that assumption.
Okay, it's a big jump over the course. Even if it's 2 years away, that still seems pretty crazy.
Yes.
Especially, and I pointed out, it's interesting because, and we talked about this before, we're being told the old days, let's not kind of think that 2% is what normal actually is or should be. I can remember back to when we were buying our first home, we were talking interest rates at the time up around 9%. And, we lived with that. So I'm not sure where we're going, but maybe it's not 2%.
Although it's interesting, too, when we go back to then, I guess that was sometime in the 80s, I'm going to guess, when you were buying your first home, that the home prices were way lower.
True.
So the mortgage was more expensive, but the actual down payment was lower and your ultimate cost was lower. So it's actually still harder, even at those rock bottom rates of 2020, 2021, it was still harder for people to buy a home. And it's basically impossible for young people to buy a home without some form of assistance from somebody else, because saving for the down payment now is really moving out of reach.
Yeah, that's fair. All right, so since we're on the Bank of Canada, let's talk about this idea where Tiff Macklem, who's the governor, says the bank needs to rebuild public trust after inflation. First of all, what does that even mean, and how does the Bank of Canada go about doing that?
Yeah, I mean, he's sort of being reflective, and this is, I guess, the nature of somebody like Tiff, who, he's an economist and he cares about data and he cares about what happens so he can think about the future. I think most Canadians have confidence in the Bank of Canada, and I would say they signaled pretty clearly through this whole piece their intentions, what they were going to do, then they followed through. The one thing we might go back and quibble about is, did our central bank wait too long to move on interest rates? But if they did, every other central bank did as well. Remember, economists thought it was transitory and that we didn't need to worry about the inflation we were seeing. So that, we might chew over. He and his colleagues might chew over. I think they've done a good job. I think most Canadians think they've done a good job.
Well, for some Canadians, he must be doing a good job because it says here, Canada's rich keep getting richer. This is a new StatsCan report.
This was a read StatsCan does on household net worth, and collectively it hit a record high, $16 trillion, which is kind of incredible. And it is true that most of that is homeowners. Now, we should remember that 60% of Canadians own homes. So yes, the wealthy got even wealthier, but anybody who has a home has a better chance at increasing their net worth. We know that to be true, which kind of back to the other point is even more important why we need to let people into this game, right? First-time home buyers need to get in.
I'm trying to imagine how this scenario plays out down the road. So you have homes, of course, at their most expensive level. You have Canada's rich getting richer. Do we ever get back to a scenario where home, and we talked about this a couple of minutes ago, where being able to afford a home actually becomes just that, affordable?
We can get back there if we collectively want to. And the only way to do it, Aaron, is if those people who already own homes, and remember that's 60% of us, are willing to take a little bit less in the sale of our home. That's a full stop. If we build enough homes so that everybody who wants one can afford one, then the ones that exist get cheaper. And that's just the way a market works of supply and demand. The problem we have is there's so many vested interests, including those of us sitting in our homes, who don't really want to lose value. So it's going to take courage. It's going to take collective social understanding that, you might make a little bit less, but that's okay because everybody needs a place to live. And I'll say, historically, back when you bought your house, homes weren't a place you made a killing. They were a place that was a really good way to save money because it kind of forces you to save over time, keep pace with inflation, and it feels like a lot of money when you sell it because the miracle of compound return means if you just get 2% a year for 10 years, you're doubling your money.
Yeah.
It's kind of incredible. We need to get back to that.
So when you say need to get back to it, it seems like, it's asking every, average Canadian to consider, give someone else a break because you shouldn't be making, a windfall on your home. Will we need more than that? Does it involve legislation or not?
It doesn't. Legislation, yes, in the way of clearing away the red tape and the, regulatory burden on building in places where we're not building now, building density. It really does mean that politicians have to be, I think, a little bit more honest. We don't really talk about this. If we build as many homes as CMHC says we need to build, which is 3.5 million more than we currently do, we will see a drop in value of existing real estate. I'm okay with that. And people need to be okay with that. Don't count on your home as, some kind of lottery ticket. It is a great way to save money. It should be a place you want to live. But it shouldn't be something that you shouldn't be out there flipping houses and treating it as an investment tool. When we treat them as investment tools, we lose sight of the value of them, which is as a place to live, which is a basic human right.
Yeah, it's funny as you say that. I wonder to myself, depending on what generation you come from, right? Back in the day, you're right. When we bought a home, if it had appreciated a bit, you could actually make a couple of bucks. That was great. Now it's unless it's, like as you said, winning a lottery. People don't seem ready to say, well, wait a sec, I'm prepared to do this because they spent, 20 years ago, 30 years ago, and they somehow feel entitled to be able to make as much money as they possibly can. I don't know how that mindset gets changed.
It gets changed, I think, by politicians with courage. It's the only way to do it, right? Because left to our own devices, we're going to be a little self-interested. We're not going to think of sort of the collective good. I will say, interestingly, a big number of our MPs in Ottawa own investment properties. So this sort of problem of, self-interest might run deeper than we even care to think about. We have financialized housing, and if we're okay with that, fine. Then there's a whole generation that won't get into the action. If we do care about it, we can definancialize. It will be hard and it might not be fun, but we can do it.
And I imagine it'll take quite a while.
Mm-hmm. Well, you could do it really quickly. We could build homes faster than we are. Let's agree. We talk a lot about building homes, and it happens really slowly. If we did a kind of a post-war initiative to build homes that people could afford to live in, it could get done. We just lack the collective will because there's so many people who like the status quo. They don't say that, Aaron. They don't want to admit it, but that's the fact.
Well, how much of that is actual red tape? So that's a matter of waiving some of the red tape that exists?
You can waive the red tape. You can literally create, if the federal government teamed up with the provinces and said, we are now going to embark on training initiatives to get the skilled trades we need, get the workers we need, either bring them in as skilled workers or train them up here, and we're going to create like this mass incentive. Instead of spending, double-digit billions on a new EV plant, you spend it on building homes, you're going to get homes.
And that's where we're going to leave it. Amanda, thanks as always. Really appreciate it. Have a great weekend.
Great to talk.